Okay guys, so last week we finished up the first half of the emotion regulation module. Those skills, check the facts, opposite action, and problem solving, are all about changing unwanted emotions. So emotions that don't fit the facts, that don't make sense based on the current situation. Maybe it's, like old stuff coming in, or emotions that if we acted on the action urges would get us further away from the life we want to live. So that's what we have been working on for the last month. Check the facts, opposite action, and problem solving. Today we're moving on to the second half of the module, which is reducing vulnerability to emotion mind. So this half is all about building up resiliency, creating more strength inside yourself so that when the bad situations come up, because life inevitably gives them to us, that you have more emotional battery left to deal with them. So intentionally investing in yourself, doing all that you can to take care of your mind and your vessel to prevent the negative emotions from having as much of an impact on your life. And so this skill set is the ABC Please acronym. So there's kind of 5 different skills in that. Accumulate positives in the short and long term, build mastery, cope ahead, and please, which is all of our physical self-care stuff that we can do to help with emotion regulation. So today we're going to start with the A, and we're just going to start with accumulate positives in the short term. So this is the idea that we are, one, all deserving of good things, and that the more intentional good things we can give ourselves, the more we fill up our emotional battery. In DBT, when I used to do this in group a lot, the first pushback tend to be people with depression. Well, if I have the energy to get up and do something that other than lay in bed and doom scroll on my phone, then I should do something that I need to do. Like if I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna engage in activity, then I need to knock something off my to-do list. And accumulate positives kind of works the opposite of that, right? Like you are deserving of the good thing no matter what, even if you haven't accomplished anything for 2 weeks. And typically we tend to build momentum, right? When we get up and we do something, especially something that gives us a dopamine hit, we're more likely to continue doing other things. So it is beating the stagnation by activating motion, basically. I'm going to engage, and once I have engaged, I'm way more likely to engage in other things. So there are 2 ways we can go about accumulating positives in the short term. We can intentionally add more good things into our life on a day-to-day basis, and we can change how we think about the things that we already do to conceptualize them as positive things. And so I'm going to give examples of both of that. So self-care in the general terms of, all the things that we hear about doing for yourself absolutely falls under accumulate positives, right? Taking a bubble bath, going for a walk, making yourself a green smoothie, all of those things are good, positive things. And you probably, as an emotionally sensitive individual, are really good at doing those things for other people, right? Helping other people have good self-care, take a little break for themselves. But we tend to hold ourselves to higher standards and expect more. And we don't give ourselves the goodness that we allow other people to have. This morning, I wasn't really feeling like going to yoga. And I said that to my teacher when I walked in class. And she's like, Jamie, that's okay. You cannot feel like it and still be here. And it's good. That's good. And that's this accumulate positives. You cannot feel like it and still do good for yourself and rack up those battery points. It's just the follow through and the behavior. So if you have the DBT binder, the accumulate positives in the short-term list is 4 pages long. It's got over 300 ideas of different things, and they're silly little things. And most of the things, anybody has access to, because they're not you need a lot of prep or whatever. Just things that spark joy. Life is hard. Modern life in 2022 is harder and more complex than at any other point in human history. We need more intentional positive things in our lives. So the other thing about adding more accumulate positives is this idea that we can switch how we think about something. And the example I always use for this is sweeping my house. I have long-haired cat and 2 dogs. Have to sweep every day. Also laminate floors, 90% of the house. It is not optional. It has to be done. As a person with ADHD, I do not like repetitive tasks that get undone in less than 24-hour time span. It's fucking infuriating, right? I don't like to do the same thing over and over. That's how my brain's wired. It's a boring task and it gets undone so quickly. but we can change how we think about things. From this is something I have to do to feel good about myself, because I'm also gonna like beat myself up if I don't do it, and like, oh, you live in slop. That's not healthy, right? But it's my programming I'm still dealing with. To this idea that this task that I don't particularly enjoy doing is an act of devotion for myself. I live alone. I don't have to do this, right? I am choosing to, even if it's the screwed up messages in my head that are leading me to do it. And so choosing to do this thing for myself is investing in myself. It's taking my time and giving it of me to me in a way that improves my living environment, because we deserve clean spaces. We deserve spaces where our nervous systems can relax. Being a person with a lot of trauma, like that's my number one goal in life, is taking care of my nervous system and giving it the goodness to be healthily regulated. And so maybe it's not as much about adding in those more of the silly little things that we think of as self-care. Maybe it's looking at your life and going, how can I change my thoughts about the things that I already do, the things that I incorporate regularly, to make them more emotionally beneficial to myself? To say that this task is not something that's taking from me. Instead, it is a task that is giving to me. And that's a huge shift. And like I started teaching with this example 8-9 years ago, and it's still a daily practice because I still don't like sleeping. And it is part of my devotion to myself. So I encourage you to go out and think of a list of some things that you could do this week and write it down somewhere, and actually start looking at the list every day. Pick 2 or 3 items. What 2 or 3 things could I give to myself today that are going to give me positivity, create some good brain chemistry, send off those good hormones, and put some battery in my emotional battery?